May we have the council member roll call, please?
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Gertz?
Here.
Mr. Lynn?
Here.
Mr. Albrecht?
Here.
Mr. Lindeman?
Here.
Mr. Fischescher?
Here.
Mrs. Edichico? Here.
I know the minutes came out a little bit late, but, you know, I hope everyone had a chance to look at them. If there's no objection, the minutes for the council meeting on August 17th, 2021, a legislative and a council of the whole meeting are approved as distributed. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So the minutes are approved. Audience participation, anyone in the audience that would like to address council, please step up to the microphone, state your name, address, and in 5 short minutes, try to tell us what you want.
Try to do it in 3. My name is Pat Ormond, 2720 Maple Tree Court. I'm here with my wife Tracy, and we are members of 2, we think, pretty important groups in Reading now. We part of the We Thrive. We have a shirt for that, and we're part of a new group that we started called Walk with Purpose, which is a litter cleanup group, and we currently have about 40 members that are cleaning up between 15 and 20 miles of the city streets, we think, with our best guess anyway. And I just wanted to touch on a couple quick issues that I think are going to actually be discussed tonight. The first one is the unsolicited materials ordinance. Dave Powell and his committee have kind of helped us and worked on possibly restricting the placement of some of these unsolicited materials, such as the weekly door store ads. And this week you probably noticed you got a Cincinnati Bell phone book wrapped up in a plastic bag. Probably also noticed this weekend that it rained like crazy. And as my wife and I walked around Hunt Road and Thornridge and Sanborn and Leelanau and Pompano and a few other streets, you know, we picked up probably 50 to 75 soaking wet ad bags that were thrown on sidewalks, driveway aprons, and streets, gutters. We also picked up quite a few of those phone books that were thrown into the streets and onto the sidewalks. Again, soaking wet, doing the residents absolutely no good whatsoever. So we're definitely hoping that, you know, we can maybe be, I think, the first city in Hamilton County that kind of puts those things where they belong on the door. They were called Door Store, and they did a great job with that for the longest period of time. We in Maplewoods and Cherryfield, for whatever reason, our ads are mailed to us. The rest of the city seems to get them thrown in these bags out a car window, traveling 25 miles an hour down the street. So we're kind of hoping that we could, you know, get a little help cleaning up the city with that. We want everybody to have their ads. I think more people would actually see the ads if they were put on the door. But when they're soaking wet and they're run over and turned into paper mush on the street, they're doing absolutely no good whatsoever. So I hope you can help us with that ordinance. And secondly, I do want to talk a little bit about recycling. We are avid recyclers, as I know many of you on council are also avid recyclers. At the Taste of Reading this past weekend, we had a very successful recycling event, and maybe it's been done in the city before with this kind of event. Maybe it hasn't, I don't know. But in cooperation with Hamilton County Solid Waste District, they gave us 15 recycle bins that my wife and I strategically placed around Koenig Park. And we collected, we're guessing between 85 and 90% of the plastic bottles and aluminum cans that were tossed out at that particular festival, and something that my wife and I will continue to do at festivals as, you know, best we can. We donated 80 pounds after sorting through some of that. We donated about 80 pounds of our aluminum cans to the St. John United Church of Christ, I believe it's called, down there. And they're very grateful because they put that money toward the food pantry. I know another issue coming up, you know, in the not too near future or far future is, you know, a new garbage contract with the city. And I would definitely, you know, from our point of view, encourage recycling to be a part of that contract. I think we're only one of a few communities in all of Hamilton County that don't do that. I know you can do it through subscription, but I think as consumers and, you know, being respectful to our planet, that we should capture as a city as much of that aluminum, plastic, cardboard, paper, et cetera, as we possibly can. So any help council can give us with, and I'll tell you, Rumpke, I've talked to a couple people at Rumpke that are pretty important in that area, and they are willing to bend over backwards to help that happen in this city. So I know they also put an invitation out for all of you to come down and take a recycling tour on Wednesday, September 15th, I believe, 11:30. I'm hoping, you know, I will be there. I hope you guys can, you know, join us down there, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Lindeman.
First of all, I'd like to thank you. I know that you've been thanked before, but I don't think we can thank you enough for all that you and your wife do. It's wonderful what you've started, and my goodness gracious, 20 miles of Reading that you pick up and your people. Thank you very much for that. And I know that you were a big part, as well as Sabrina, in getting those recycle bins at the park at the Taste of Reading. And I thought that was wonderful too. I appreciate you sending pictures, and I mean, I couldn't judge by the pictures, but you know, 85 pounds of aluminum cans is a lot too. And what do you do with them? You didn't cash them in and spend it on beer money.
No,
you
as a matter of
donated
fact, that was bag number 4 and 5 that we've donated to St. John. The other 3 bags were just bags that we've picked up off of the streets over the last, you know, year or so. A lot of aluminum cans get tossed out, and, you know, put into, you know, garbage cans at the parks and stuff, and we'll use our little pickers and grab them out and give them to the church. So we're happy to do it, and we'll continue to do so, but any help council can give us to make that a bigger plan for Reading would be greatly appreciated.
I also thank you for your kind words about the recycling. I'm sure that Patrick will be talking a little bit about that later on too. Maybe I can ask him now if he can say what the Public Works, how they felt about it, but it sounds like you took care of the whole thing.
Downtown at the parking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I know that was, Mr.
we
Wheatmarsh
collected
is
it
out
and
there.
hauled
He
it
could
out.
probably attest to that as well. It's kind of a hassle. People throw under just about anything in the recycle bins, unfortunately. So I don't know how they handle that, but
They climb in there. Well, when people, I mean, as you recall, they replaced those recycling bins down there, the big ones. I mean, our guys they've taken pictures because they have to pull a car up next to it and lift the lid off and pull out trash that people are throwing into the recycling bins. And even though they've replaced them, some people have broken the doors and are able to lift them up now. So anything that can, truly have recycling, they're always happy about, because they get frustrated, very frustrated when you talk to Seth about that.
And super quick, I want to just commend all the people of Reading who attended that festival, because actually there was very little real garbage in those bags. They followed the recycling signs to a T. A few plastic cups in there, but that could almost seem recyclable. So it was actually done very, very well.
Is that Chico?
again,
I was just gonna say, in the last couple days, I've had a few people contact me about the door store bags, and they are glad that you're presenting an ordinance to do something about them. So I just wanted to put that out there, that there are people taking notice of that.
Pat, I want to thank you too, you and your wife, Tracy, for all the hard work you do. It's really, you're a great example, and I think the rest of the community needs to follow it, and you've been leading the way. You've been doing real well, and I thank you myself for what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Anyone else want, yes?
Hi, my name's Glenda A. Smith, and I'm
here to tell the city of Reading what the Glenda A. Smith Youth Sanctuary has to offer the city of Reading as well as the rest of Hamilton County. The Glenda A. Smith Youth Sanctuary's mission is to bring nonprofits, businesses, and governments together to bring resources to children and families to maximize their potential. And there's 3 services that we provide, well, 2 services we provide to the community currently and 1 that we're working on. The 2 services we are providing is number 1, a Zoom youth discussion series, which it meets weekly, ages 9 to 18. You can go to gasmithys.com to get the meeting ID and passcode. But we answer questions such as who am I, what is my purpose, and it's biblically based. However, we are open to other discussions in that regard. For every 4 sessions a child attends, they do get a gift card. The second service we are currently providing is a free gift card to help people get over the hump. Because, you know, everybody needs a little assistance every once in a while, and there's no real qualification other than your name and how many people are in your family. So you can go to gasmithys@gmail.com and just let us know that you need a gift card. You can use it for food, gas, or a crock pot, so, or a pair of shoes even. Again, we want you to feel free to do that. The third thing is we are raising money to build a residential facility for homeless youth where we'll teach faith, work ethic, and charity. And the reason why this nonprofit is in existence and is happy to provide these services is because I was raised by a single parent, and I received charity from my grandparents, obviously my parents, and my aunts and uncles and teachers, professors, and just charity of their time and talents. And it has really blessed me and allowed me to reach certain heights in my lifetime. So I'm really blessed, and I do encourage people to take advantage of it if they need something. So,
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Do you have a business card?
Yes, I do.
That's what I was going to ask.
With all the information you need.
Thank you.
And do you have a business address?
I do. It's on here. It's 119 East Court Street, so it's currently
Okay, downtown.
right out of my law practice. So
Oh.
we anticipate we will
Thank you.
have to come to people or meet them somewhere.
Okay.
We have gone to people's homes.
Very good.
Thank you
Thank you.
for coming.
Thank you for coming. Anyone else would like to address council? Then we will continue with our agenda. Reading of any communications?
No, sir.
No guest speakers. We did think that we had Linda Fitzgerald and to coming this week, but she said it was for 2 weeks from now, and she's also going to be bringing Brenda back because of what happened at school. So 2 weeks from now, we'll have them as guest speakers. There's no executive session requested, so we will go to guest administrative official reports. Safety Service Director, Mr. Ross.
First, this one, this is for all council. Normally, I give this to Carla, but I just got it, and I'll read it for now, if that's all right, Carla. It's one of the Division of Liquor Control notice of asking if we want to do a hearing on liquor permits. Most of the time, you know, they're renewals, and we just post those along. This one, I think we, as a city, we should request a hearing on this one. This is for the address of 8410 Reading Road, and it's the second property in from the BP on the corner. There used to be a tavern there owned by Mr. Doug Bailey. Are you guys familiar with the property, sort of, what I'm talking about? It's
Street is it?
Reading Road.
Reading Road.
So right there on Reading Road, it's the second property in from the BP on the same side of the street. And there's two reasons really for this. One, just in 2019, he filed for and got a use change for what he's using it for, basically office space for the business that is adjacent to them next door, which he owns, which is a used car lot, basically. Second, it's not a principally permitted use to have a bar or tavern at that location. Now, the prior business, was grandfathered in under the old zoning, and now it's been changed because it's been more than 1 year, and B, he's using it as something else. So I question whether or not we want another bar right there. It also is the most unrestrictive permit class, which is a D5, which means that they could be open till 2:30 a.m. as a bar and tavern. I know the chief is opposed to any more bars going in town, so I wanted to bring this to council and see if they would agree that we should request a hearing, not just because we don't necessarily want any more bars in town, but it's not allowable use for the property. They would have to go through and get a conditional use, but it's not a principally permitted use. And they haven't filed anything with us as far as trying to open a business there as a bar. This is the first the chief and I both heard of it. So did anyone have any opposition to us?
I had a question. Do you know whether they're applying to put it on the shelf, or do they actually intend to use it for purposes of conducting the business? They can do that, if I recall. They can they can still keep the license, put it on the shelf. Sometimes that's a way for them to market the thing,
It does, I don't have any of that information. All I know is it is it says a new permit, so it's not a transfer of another permit from another business to
No.
here. This is a brand new one, so I don't know. And this is the first I heard of it, like I said, because the person owns, a used car company, right there, and uses the current property for that. So, I'm not sure.
Is that the house that Harold Likens used to have a bar in?
I think, did Harold way back in the day?
Yeah.
I know Doug Bailey.
He had wishing wells.
Used to be the Wishing Well.
Yeah.
They moved it down there.
And then after that, I know Doug Bailey owned it because we were actually trying to purchase it probably 10 years ago, but he had tenants in there, so we couldn't do it.
Do you know if he's still planning on operating the used car dealership out of there, or?
We have not, I've not even heard directly from Mr. Strickland. Like I said, he didn't file anything through our zoning department to change the use or ask for the use as a bar.
Definitely need a hearing.
So I just definitely wanted to bring that up to you guys because.
I'd like more information on it. I don't disagree that we ought to pursue, checking it out, but at the same time, I don't want to jeopardize somebody's investment in an asset that they could potentially market.
Sure.
He may want to put it on the shelf and then market that for legitimately another location that could be used.
Yeah.
How do you keep him from using it if he gets it?
I haven't done one for quite a while, but you used to be able to put it, what they called, put it on the shelf. You get your permit approved, but they keep it at the liquor department's records, and it's always debatable whether are you buying the inventory in a good name, or are you buying a liquor license? And most of us sitting around the table know the reality of what you're buying.
Right.
And so I hate to jeopardize someone's.
Well, we do have.
They can be very valuable as far as an investment.
Well, the real question is Randy asked, how do you keep him from doing it? Well, he's still got to get a zoning certificate.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we do have until
put it on the
September
shelf,
27th to respond.
No,
So,
if he wants to open a bar down there,
we
he has
do.
to get his
We
own.
can-
Right.
I can look into it and at the next meeting, see if I have any more information, but I would have to respond there at the next, after the next meeting.
Okay, great.
Do you need an answer tonight, whether you want?
No, it's, we can wait till the next meeting, which is the 21st, because we have until the 27th to respond.
Could you email us all with the information that you gained, so we know
Yep.
ahead of time?
Yes, I will. I'm going to go a little out of order from what I've written down here. One thing with the Arlington Heights agreement, thank Mr. Powell catching a typo in section 6 of the agreement. It's, their period got put in there, it should be 340,000 for year one. So that's a typo in the agreement for the police services with Arlington Heights. And in another section earlier on, it has a date, and that was just a filler date that we will fill in once council adopts that. We do not need to vote on that this evening. I just wanted to, it does not expire until the end of the year. For anyone that's watching, wanting to know, the city of Reading started 3 years ago to provide police services for the village of Arlington Heights on a 3-year deal, and that contract expires at the end of this year. Myself and the administration and the police department are all in unanimous favor of extending that agreement. This time we are looking for a 5-year extension. Arlington Heights, their council has already approved that. There are built-in monetary increases every year. It's an agreement that's truly a win-win. It bolsters, the service that we're able to provide here in Reading, and we provide better service than they, had prior, and I'm not going to mention who they had prior, but they are very happy with the level of service that we are providing. So I wanted to clarify that in the agreement. It can just be a first reading this evening. The second one, the other ordinance I sent earlier today can also be a first reading, and I'm sure there might be some more discussion and questions on that one. This is an ordinance granting Duke a release regarding the right-of-way restoration. And this section specific, so last month, the mayor at council brought up the desire to do curbs on 3rd Street in coordination kind of with Duke, who's going to have to repave. Duke has to repave the entire section of road from curb to curb, all the way from the stadium unto basically, if you don't know the route, it's West Street, Pleasant, makes a right at Market, makes a left on Mechanic, makes a right, goes all the way down 3rd Street. When it crosses Benson, it stays only on the east side of the boulevard, and then makes a slight right onto Voorhees Street in the roadway, and then it goes into the sidewalk there. So that's the roadway portion through Reading. There's other sections that are not in the roadway. So that's the entire length. And part of their permit is they have to repave from curb to curb paving. And then they also have to fix any kind of curbs that they might have damaged, any other concrete work, so on and so forth through that area. So as you recall, last month the mayor brought up doing curbing. Duke is responsible for about, and our Public Works walked it off with them in person, and we've all marked it. They're responsible for about 1,100 approximately feet of curb to replace on 3rd Street. And this is from Benson to Mechanic, that section of 3rd Street. And I believe everyone was positive about trying to do this. In meeting with Duke after that, we were talking to them about getting this done, even quickly getting a price together from a contractor who could get it done. I mean, they really need to get it done by middle of October at the latest. That's when they want to be paving in Reading. So we brought up that, and we're looking at the feasibility of getting a contractor to do 100% of the curbs through there was going to be very difficult in the time frame. So in talking with their person who's in the field, I said, is there a way that you might be able to delay your paving somewhat so we could get this also done? He said, I'm not really sure because they have to meet deadlines with Public Utilities Commission for this permit. At the same time, I had a meeting with our Public Works Department and Water Department on all the different water mains and what should, priorities, because there is another grant application just specifically for water, wastewater, stormwater. So we went over a priority list, and 3rd Street was the first street that they listed for, as a priority. And the reason for that, and specifically from Benson to Mechanic. From Benson to Voorhees, as you recall, probably in 2007, 2008, we redid that entire boulevard section, upgraded the water main to give access back to Knives site. So that section, curbing, water main, is in good shape. So the section we're talking about is from Mechanic all the way to Benson. It's predominantly a 3-inch water main, which is extremely small. And there is still lead in the line, not in the main line, but in the service lines from the water main to the curb stops. And then there likely is lead from the curb stop to the homes, which is homeowner responsibility, and I'll get to that part in a few minutes. Just in the last couple months, our guys, I think they told me they had 5 water main breaks of that main through that section. So really, we're looking at it and I'd really like to get the water main done and curbs, at the same time, but we're dealing with a deadline that Duke they have to get this done, because they're pretty much, the bore is, I think, pretty much done. So they're going to be starting to do testing on the line, and once the testing comes back, they're planning to do paving. So then I talked to Gary Hebler, who's been here. He's the VP of gas operations, because asking them to delay it or something is beyond Matt Weber's. He's not authorized to do that. In talking, we just wanted them to delay it if they could. They really can't really do a delay, so they went through their bid documents. So they already got a pricing for all this. So when they bid out the project, they bid out, pricing for all the paving, any kind of spot curb that they have to do. So they have pricing that they came up with. I said, well, provide me with the pricing. And so the section that we're talking about, and this can be a first reading as well, and they're going to send me over a map that shows the specific section. But we're talking about the area east of the railroad tracks on Mechanic Street all the way to basically to Voorhees Street. So that's the area that they would be repaving and doing some curbs. So the part that's west of the railroad tracks, Duke's still responsible. They're not asking for a release or asking us to do this. They gave us a price from, so on Mechanic Street to 3rd, the entire length of 3rd, and then the short section of Voorhees. That amount came up to just over $461,000. That they have said, hey, we will give that money to the city, so you guys can engineer a road project, water main project, properly without having to rush it. And I said, well, okay, well, I'm going to take this to my engineer to make sure that the money that you're offering we're not being shortchanged the dollars. So part of the reason this didn't come till later is because it took until the end of last week for JMA to review and make sure that the pricing was good. And she came back at the end of last week and said that the $461,000 adequately covers the paving and the curb work that they are required to do per their permit. So what they're offering to do, and in my opinion, I think it's more than that. Because their pricing, for example, for curb work was a lot more than we will get doing. Instead of doing spot curb for about 1,100 feet, we're going to do 3,200 feet all along. And I know that we will get probably a lower price, just knowing what we got on Thornridge. Thornridge, it was just over $40 per linear foot. And I believe that they're paying significantly more than that to do spot curb through the area. So the dollar amount, I believe, will actually cover even more of that. I do not have yet, because like I said, our engineer didn't have time to put together then a full estimate for us, including the water main. I'm hoping that she will have that by the next meeting. But that's what this ordinance, for a first reading tonight, this will relieve Duke of the responsibility to do the paving work east of Mechanic Street to Voorhees Street. We will then take the money, put it into our Streets and Curbs Fund, fully engineer a project, as a road project that will be streets, curbs, water main through that whole section. And if council passes it, we will then, in coordination with Duke, contact all the residents there on the street to make sure that they're aware, because the repaving then, likely wouldn't occur until sometime early next year. So, but I think, it's a good opportunity to get other, infrastructure work that we need done, in a way that, Duke's paying for a portion of that, so.
Sounds good. Mr. Lindeman.
I just want to say, Patrick said a lot. I'm not going to repeat what he said. But I want to make a point. That what they're doing here is they are going to provide more services for the city of Reading with the same amount of money. They're just going to be able to do more things that they couldn't do if they were on the time constraint that Duke had set. So I give you kudos for that, and thinking out of the box. It's great.
The other thing, if council does move forward and allow, to provide bid specs upon that, as an alternate, what I would like to see any contractor that gets the job to provide an alternate price to replace the lead from the curb stop to the houses. Because even though it's not our responsibility, I think we should at least get a pricing, make sure every resident knows, hey, you have lead, you don't, this is the cost. Because, everyone, lead is one of those things with the Ohio EPA, national EPA, that eventually, one way or another, it's going to have to all go. So that will, if council does move forward with this option of working, I would like to at least have an alternate in there that would give either a price per linear foot from the curb stop to the home, or a flat price. It's not that long of, from the curb, we're talking about, think about 3rd Street. It's narrow as it is, as we all know, and most of those curb stops are, right next to the sidewalk somewhere. So you're only talking from the sidewalk to the home, which there's not a lot of long front yards through that section. So hoping, they would get a good price on that.
Okay. Mr. Powell.
One other thing that I just kind of thought about, Pat, that we'll need to consider working around the new pipeline. It's likely to be more expensive for the contractor, so just something to kind of keep in mind as we move forward, that any project that work around it, there's probably going to be some additional stuff that we're going to have to do that we didn't used to have to do. So.
I brought that up, just, that was my first thought, is it going to be harder for us to install water main? They will have to have one of their inspectors out there that we don't have to pay for, just because anytime you do work in the pipeline. But the depth should eliminate any, they're at 10 feet deep with that.
Oh, okay.
So we shouldn't get close to hitting that for our water main. Water main's probably 5 feet difference between where we likely there. I mean, obviously, especially when you have a big backhoe digging up holes and whatnot, but we won't be anywhere near the depth of their gas main when we do it. We'll have to have somebody there inspecting it.
I was mainly just worried about the service line.
Oh, well, I mean, that's a normal thing that they're, all contractors, I mean,
Right.
That's not being changed by the pipeline.
Well, I mean, usually they don't have to cross a 24-inch gas pipeline, though.
Yeah, well, no, it was a challenge for the pipeline installers, just anecdotally. I mean, think about how close those houses are.
Sure, yeah.
And every single house, I mean, this is why the route just didn't make sense. But every single house had a gas service, water service, and a sewer service coming out to the street. And the pipe can't bump into any of that stuff. So that's why it's taken so long through that section. They thought they were going to probably be able to get 40 to 80 feet. At one point, they were at about 20 feet a day. So, I mean, because just look at it and think about all the services coming out. And of course, they're not like all lined up. You might have gas here, water here, sewer, I mean, they're all, you know, and it's one of our oldest parts of town, so the whole route just, yeah. I'm not redoing the whole route because we've argued and fought that all along, but, you know, all the different things with that.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Oh, I have a
I don't
couple,
think he's done.
Oh, you're not done, okay.
sorry, just a couple more things.
I was just trying to get Randy taken care of.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Just a quick update on Thornridge. Duke is still finishing, they had to do a whole lot of gas service line relocations, so that's what they're close to getting that completed. Upon their completion, Alita will begin water main. That'll be the first aspect of work that they'll be doing up there is water main replacement. So they think probably within 2 weeks that they'll be able to get started on the water main at that point. So I just wanted to give update on that. For Benson Street, as most have seen, our Public Works has been out there. They were out there 2 days last week, and then they'll be out there hopefully just tomorrow, finishing up. So they were doing some spot curb work. You know, there wasn't a lot of curb that needed replaced, but we identified some areas where they wanted to replace that curbing, and so our guys are replacing that. So last week they did the section between Reading and the bridge. This week they're doing between, not Reading and the bridge, Jefferson and the bridge. This week they're doing between Reading and Jefferson. And they dug it all out today. I didn't get an update from John late in the day, but with good weather, they should be pouring tomorrow, so they should be out of there. And then the contractor will be in then the following day to start tearing out the pavement and repaving that. There will be detours when they're in each section. It's not going to be a full detour, so they'll either be in the section between Walkendorf and Jefferson or Jefferson and Reading. And we know it's going to be inconvenient for a few days when that's closed, but it's a fairly, for as busy a street it is, it's fairly narrow, and it'll be much safer for not just for the workers, but for drivers driving through there with big equipment. So they'll be starting on Thursday. The closure will not be closed at night. It'll be open every night, every weekend, which, talking directly with some of the bridal businesses, they were all like, as long as you're not out there on Saturday when all the brides are coming, we're fine. But their plan is to work 4 10-hour days, with Friday being a makeup day. But they don't think, I mean, they gave through the end of September for construction time. I asked them to err on the side of overestimating than underestimating, because it's fairly simple. There's some utility adjustments that need to be done with some of the manholes, paving, and then some of the loops will have to be redone. But it should take only 4 or 5 days for each section, and that's max, to have it grind, everything stripped out of there, and then a full day for paving, and then the next day for striping. So overall, it shouldn't, it'll be inconvenient for that time. I have posted those maps online, and if you're looking at the map and wondering why did we go, so for the Walkendorf to Jefferson, the detour takes you down to Bradley instead of Cooper. The main reason for that is having serendipity at the end of Cooper. We just didn't want to be sending cars where we know that there are preschool kids, and a lot of them, the parents park in the parking lot across the street and walk them across. So we just brought them one more block down to Bradley to avoid that. And then for Jefferson to Reading, that will take you down to Vine Street. Vine Street's the first two-way street between here and there. And we did limit parking on one side of the street on there, because it's narrow when you have cars parked on both sides. I know it's a little inconvenient for the people that live on those streets. We did move the parking on the side that my mom lives on, so, I didn't do any favor, I didn't pick the opposite side of the street to benefit her, so that's for Benson. Don mentioned garbage recycling. From my perspective, I was waiting to have any kind of updates from Don's committee for the bid specs, and once we have kind of the bid specs nailed out, we will be I'll advertise that. And you know, I know Rumpke is our hauler. I will be reaching out to a couple of the other providers that do garbage and recycling, so we get hopefully competitive bids. Last time around, Rumpke was the only bidder. 10 years ago, we had, I think, 3 or 4 bidders, and at that time, if you recall, the garbage price was, I think, like a 25% drop.
25% savings.
So, you know, I'd like, you know, I'm going to reach directly out to and provide them with the bid specs to Republic Services, and I think Best Way are 2 of the ones in this area that provide it. Whether or not they will give a better price than Rumpke, that's to be determined, but, you know, being public bidding, they have the right to bid on those as well. So as soon as your committee finalizes that, I'm ready to advertise that.
We're going to talk about it too.
Yeah, I figured you would, but you mentioned me.
Something on that subject?
On the
You wanna say
previous
s-
subject,
Uh,
Benson Street.
You want to talk about Benson Street? Go ahead. I mean,
Well, I don't like to
keep
disagree
it
with
current.
Patrick, but I have to, because I think the Public Works Department has done a lot of work on Benson Street, and I think they've done an excellent job. And
Yeah.
I know you're not saying
No,
they
no,
didn't
no.
do an excellent job, but I think they did a tremendous amount of curb work and pavers, and I have to say, Patrick and the mayor, I asked them to look into as much as they could on Benson Street when they were doing the paving, and I think they came through. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I mean, I'm not taking credit. Our public works guys, I mean, they're as good, I mean, we have the most, I mean, versatile, you know, guys that can do just about any job you could think of. I mean, our guys went from building the Voorhees restroom to doing, I mean, and this work that they're doing out there, I mean, that's right up a lot of these guys' wheelhouse, because a lot of these guys we've hired away from Alita who does this work, so they do a really good job of that. So thanks, Don, for complimenting them.
They told me that they're going to be doing 400 feet of curb on Benson.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to make a comment too about that. I'm glad that we're going ahead with the Benson Street paving and the curbs and gutter. I'm kind of chagrined about why my ordinance was, you know, rejected by the mayor and vetoed, because that's exactly what they're doing is what was in the ordinance. And I know that the service department is overwhelmed in many, many ways, and I know they're very competent. We worked very hard to build a good service department. But at the same time, we only got 1 bid on that, and I'm extremely happy that we didn't lose the community development block grant of $144,000, because I know it had to be done here pretty quickly, or we would not have gotten that for the previous 3 years. So I'm glad and very happy to see that this is always coming to fruition. As I say, I am somewhat chagrined about the method that we chose to get it accomplished, but nevertheless, it's going in the right direction. And one other question. What are it has nothing directly to do with Benson Street, but I think there was $37,000 of the grant that went. What are we exactly putting into the restrooms at Canning Park for the $37,000?
That's giving and it won't be done until the season closes. But CDBG authorized us to do, basically, they wouldn't allow us to rebuild a bathroom because of the floodplain, but they're allowing us to do kind of a whole facelift. So the restrooms will get all new, like all new fixtures throughout there, toilets, partitions, fans, just kind of all new, basically a facelift for the interior, painting, and some of the fans under the big shelter. You know, there's those fans. I think there's 4 of them. I think only 2 of them work currently. So, so just kind of a facelift for all that.
Well, I was curious because we were spending $268,000 to do if I remember correctly, for all of Benson Street to be repaved.
Yep.
And then, of course, all the time we're spending in overtime and so forth, the curbs, gutters. Are they leveling, are they going to level all the interlocking pavers as well, I assume? Is that correct? When they get the curbs in, are they leveling them? Because there are several of those.
They should be, yes.
They were working on those yesterday or today when I drove past. They were.
Yeah, they're doing
setting all
that because that can kind of be done after they get stuff
Right.
poured. They want to get the curbs
Right.
done first. That way
gotta
they're
have
out of the
them
way.
Set, they got to be cured
Yeah.
so that they can put the interlocking pavers back in correctly, but I wanted to make sure they were
Yeah.
going to be leveled correct, and make it a good thoroughfare.
Sure.
By the way, another aside on the service department, I'm glad to see that they took care of the crosswalk sign at the library and put the pylons in additional, because I was worried we were just going to paint it, so.
Well, those pylons were already up there before it got hit again. It was a
different one got hit.
it was a DUI, and apparently how the person came off of, is that Southern right there? Somehow made it's somebody under the influence of alcohol
Well, I'm
or
worried
drugs.
that if that isn't adequate, we better be doing something more.
It was just the angle that they
A lot of people from
turned
my
off
ward
of.
cross that crosswalk to get to the library. That's why I'm so concerned, all the
Yeah.
kids that go across there. So, anyway, I was glad to see it's been put back together in good fashion. I had one other question, a comment on when you get finished, that I had a question too.
Okay, I just have just the events going on this month. Wanted to make sure everyone is aware of those. This Sunday at noon, September 12th, there'll be the it's a car show. I can't remember the
Antique.
Yeah, the antique car show will be down at the pool, Hayfie Fieldhouse parking lot in the grass area. That registration will begin at 10 a.m. and then the car show will begin at 12. So if you have an old vehicle, like to show it off, that's this Sunday. They do have a rain date for the following Sunday in case there's inclement weather. The following weekend is Our Lady of the Valley, St. Peter and Paul, their festival. It's only Saturday and Sunday this year, but that's Saturday the 18th through the 19th. And there's lots of music, games, food, lots of fun for kids, adults. There's also a poker tournament on Saturday night. Starts at 7. The buy-in for that's $80. Half of that goes to the church, half to the prize pool. So if you want to do that, and the word is there's a bounty on me, so if somebody knocks me out, they get $100 just for knocking me out of the tournament. And then the last one is the Bridal District's having their event on September 22nd on Benson Street between Walkendorf and Reading, which the street will be closed from 5 to about 10. I believe the event is 6 to 9. So that's on a Wednesday night. It's usually Thursday, but they're doing it Wednesday this year. So those are things coming up this month. And I also wanted to congratulate, go online and vote for, there's several, Reading team and individuals that are up for Player of the Week this week. I do want to congratulate for last week, Eric Slavey, daughter of Dwayne and Susan. He was voted the soccer player of the week last week. He had 4 goals against Purcell Marion. So congratulations to Eric. And that's just embarrassing about him. This is how long I've been here now. So when I started, he was probably 5 years old, and Susan would come in here first thing in the morning. And I tell this to everybody just to embarrass him, but he was terrified of me. And I always try to be friendly with little kids. Hey, how you doing? And he would literally go behind her leg, hiding from me. And now he's, grown young man, and doing very well for himself. So congrats.
Mr. Powell, did you have something?
Mr. Kurtz did.
Mr. Lindeman.
I just want to add one thing to that St. Peter and Paul Festival. They're not mailing out chances, so any parishioners that, may not have gotten their chances is because they're not mailing them. So call the office and they'll make sure that you get some, I'm sure. Thank you, Pat.
Mr. Gertz, you had something?
Yes, I did. I made a call to you about, there are at least 3 properties in Ward 2, and I think there's the one, I guess that's in 1, I'm not sure, maybe 3, that I think that the property should be condemned. And I don't know what initiate, I don't want to put it all onto Todd Owens because he does a wonderful job and I'm very happy with him. But the one I called you was on Harms Avenue, and there are weeds 6 feet high, and they're in the Parkway area. It's in the cities right away. So
Yeah.
I realize that property, little research I've done is apparently the people who owned it died, and I guess the heirs are not prepared to go forward with trying to
That's what I'm working on. What are the other two?
Well, I mean, anyway, I wanted to explain, I think that they are paying the taxes, so there's no foreclosure for tax liens. And again, I'm going to bring up, maybe Dave could give me some help and research it, but at the seminar I was at some years ago, there's a way to do a court for nothing but, housing code and building code violations. And again, that's why we probably should revisit the whole thing. But that is deplorable down there. I mean, the weeds, I don't know if there's, I'm sure Rick probably has sent letters. Has that timetable been fulfilled that we can, the other one's on Pearl Street, and then there's a lady that's supposed to be doing some repairs to the house and on the building permit, and I called Dan, and he told me they get up to a year to do the work, but it's deplorable on Park Street too, where the back area is just piled full of trash and garbage, and it's really, say the least. And these are, none of these that I know of. Well, the one on Pearl might have been a rental unit, but the other two are homeowners, or were homeowners.
Okay, I'm not sure, I'm not familiar with the Pearl and Pike ones, like currently, but I know the Harms one. But I'll look for the Pearl and Pike ones.
I'll call you and leave you a message.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Ross? Thank you, Mr. Ross. We will go to.
Can I, sorry.
One more. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
This is for the public at large. Anyone knows any police officers or young people that are trying to get into policing? We are going to be having a police test on October 16th at 9 a.m. here in the council chambers to hire a new officer. You have to have any application in by October 8th at 4 p.m. here. We unexpectedly had one officer resign and take a job in another position. It was more, he got hired in, I think, as a
Talking about
supervisor.
Chris?
Yes.
He's a good guy, good
Yeah, so
policeman.
I think he'll probably be in line to be their chief, in the future. So Chris resigned from the police department. Chris Bundren, he's been with
I
us.
hate to see him leave.
Good officer.
Did actually the job in court too.
But we will be replacing his spot, so we don't have an active list. So if anybody knows any police officers, we do have it's a great place to work, Truly it is. I mean, we have a good department, so
Okay.
that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. We will go to Law Director's report.
Chris, I don't have a formal report. I am going to be leaving before the committee reports, however. If somebody has a question for me, I'd like to get that done
This
now.
is probably more comical than anything, but I guess you've never heard of the ruling and when it's going to come on the pipeline.
No, no, and just so everybody's clear, what Patrick is talking about isn't going to affect what's going on in the Supreme Court with the pipeline. So all that is getting money to repair stuff that they've already torn up, which they may have to do again, but that's only if we win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it back out. Chris.
Somebody knows something, they wouldn't spend millions of dollars, would they?
Mr. Lindeman.
Before you leave, Dave, I know you and I had a conversation. I was a little concerned about the ordinance that Dave is working on with, the door store and the telephone books and that sort of thing. But currently, there's seems to be a lot of people running for office, and I was wondering if that might affect those people delivering. I know you told me, but maybe it'd be important for the.
First of all, as long as you abide by, who knows whether it's going to get passed, considering it's going to be a first reading tonight, whether it'll even be effective before the election. But the second thing is, as long as they abide by the terms of the ordinance and get them in the proper places, they're not going to have a problem. The reason Dave's ordinance exists is because people are tossing them out of cars and they're landing in the street and they're ending up in our catch basins. Any politician worth his salt is knocking on the door and looking for somebody to answer and then leaving it on the porch or in the door if they don't find somebody at home. So that's kind of where we're at on that.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Treasurer's report, Mr. Gertz.
Thanks, Chris. I passed out a copy of August report prior to the meeting this evening, and I just noticed it's got the wrong title on it. It says July.
Mine's got all.
Wait a minute.
Mine's got
Mine
August.
says August.
I got the wrong one. Hold on. Okay, just a quick summary of the report for August. For individual income taxes, we collected $39,361, which was less than what we took in 2020, but as everybody knows, 2020 was a unique year, to put it mildly. But overall, year-to-date, we've collected $982,069, so we're still running 5% ahead in that category, almost 50,000. For business profits income taxes, we collected $38,207, which was again less than what we collected last August. However, year-to-date, we've collected $462,344, and we're running 21.2% ahead in that category. So that's been very good. And then for payroll withholding, which is where we get most of our income taxes, we collected $566,411, which was about 9% over what we collected last year in 2020. Year-to-date, we've collected $4,444,779. We're running 31% ahead. I'm sorry, 13.1% ahead in that category. And then in total, for the month of August, we collected $643,978, which was a little less than what we took in total for last August. However, year-to-date, we're still running 12.3% ahead. We've collected $5,889,192. So far this year, it's been a very strong year, and as you can see, we're still significantly ahead year-to-date, so I hope that trend continues for the next 4 months. Any questions on the report before I talk to you about the ordinance that I emailed to everybody?
Mr. Gertz?
Yeah, the only comments I ever had about this, Mel, recently is comparing it to 19 versus 20, obviously, because of the peculiar thing with the COVID. So I think all in all, in comparing it to 19, it makes me feel better because we're $500,000 ahead.
Absolutely.
Total for 19, which.
Right. Which was a normal year for the most part.
Correct, that's what I'm trying to say. So I feel comfortable that we're holding our own with getting back to some sense of normalcy, you know.
Yeah, and for total tax collections in 2019, we collected as of the end of August, we collected $5,333,000, and we're still, at the end of this past August, we collected $5,889,000. So we're still significantly ahead of 2019, which is great.
Yeah.
I hope we can continue that trend. The other thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is the ordinance. There's a ordinance for $41,000, which would be paid for out of the COVID Relief Fund 501. And this is for enabling our residents and businesses to file income taxes electronically and e-pay. We use a company called Municipal Income Tax Solutions, or the abbreviation is MITS. We've been using them for many, many years. When they first came out with this a few years back, we looked into it, but the software had not been perfected and streamlined at the time. And now it's really up to date. About everybody that's using the MITS system in the state of Ohio is now using e-file and e-pay software. And, we're one of the few municipalities that still hasn't jumped on that bandwagon. So with the COVID Relief Fund available for us, we can get all of the additional hardware we need, the software we need, training, as well as a 5-year support contract from MITS on this system. So, and the reason I made this an emergency is because we're always busy in the tax department, but we'd really like to get this installed and get everybody trained so that we're up and running before we hit the new calendar year, when people really start filing. So we need all the time we can get to get this implemented and get people trained. So that's why I made it an emergency, and hopefully, given the fact that we're getting the 41,000 out of the, not to exceed 41,000 out of the COVID relief fund, I thought this was a great opportunity to make this happen. So hopefully you'll think the same thing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gertz. And Auditor, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Chris. I have no formal report tonight. I'm just working on getting the end of the month done, and I should have that to everyone by tomorrow. So if you have any questions on it, you can let me know next week.
Okay, Mr. Ross.
Somewhat related to Mel's ordinance, Sabrina and I are in the process of looking at our finance and payroll softwares. That's going to be a bigger expenditure than this one, because it's even if we stay with the existing company, it's a whole different platform. We're on the old, it's going to be obsolete within a few years, so we have to upgrade even if we stay with the same company. So we've already met with one, and we're going to do a demo with them. And I think we have a
I have a demo with 2 others, 3 total.
Three total vendors that we're looking at to do Sabrina's side for all of her finance, and then for payroll side to process payroll. So that once we kind of vet those companies and discuss it between our offices on what we think is the best one, we'll be bringing something to council. I don't have a time frame for it, but
we're working on it actively.
we're working on that actively. So.
And just to remind everyone, it just doesn't touch my office. Everything that my office does touches all the department heads, all the employees that ever write anything up or make a purchase for the city. So this is a comprehensive plan for that to happen more electronically, more efficiently, because right now it's 100% paper done. So I've definitely talked about that before. It'll speed up kind of reporting. It'll speed up many things for the departments. It'll speed up our budget process to have them have a immediate look at their budget at the time that they're purchasing any item. And the sign-off process will not take a long time. I've already cut it in half by being the person that actually does the work and the overseer, but it's gonna cut it from department heads to Patrick to the employee writing the form out to getting it to me. That way it's already in the computer and done, so I can make payables and work on more analytical items that my office should be doing in general, so.
Well, for example, when I was on vacation in July, Sabrina, luckily I had cell service for the minute, because we were in the middle of Yellowstone at the time, and luckily we had service, but they were trying to get, something, for payment and authorization. With an upgrade, the department head can file it. It'll be sent to me via online. I'll review it either by phone or my laptop, and then once I okay it, then it goes to Sabrina. And like Sabrina said, at the same exact time, it'll show that department head his live update for his appropriation. So once that, even if it's a $50 expenditure, it'll show that now $50 less. So departments will be able to keep track of their budgets. It'll, like she said, streamline to make it way more efficient as far as, how many requisitions are filled out in the course of a year. And then also, for payroll, it's going to we'll be able to onboard people electronically. People will be able to, if they need to change their tax deductions, their W-4s, they can do all that online. It'll just bring us, make everything more efficient for not just Sabrina's office and payroll, but, for the department heads and each employee. So I'm excited for the upgrade. It will be a big change internally, so it'll take some time.
And we have the right people in place to make that happen. I want to also echo that, because it's not just Patrick and I making decisions. We're pulling in multiple people for these demos, making sure that we're getting it right, making sure that we're asking the right questions, having them ask us questions to make sure that, you know, these are salesmen and salespeople coming to us. I want to make sure we're getting the best product that is going to be utilized by our departments, so.
I just want to point that out, that it's coming. It's not here yet, but it will be coming.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Dave, nice seeing you tonight. We'll go to council committee reports. Finance Chairman, Mr. Gertz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that the treasurer and the auditor pretty well covered a lot of the finance issues. One thing I am going to pursue, and I haven't heard it back yet, but I'm going to check it. We did, as you're well aware, pass our 2022 budget submission to the Budget Commission timely this year, and I anticipate that when I researched it last year that we could have known a lot sooner. So I will be pursuing that personally, and hope that it will come through the same approximate time that it did last year. I think it was at the end of September. So if that does come through, that will eliminate the need for a temporary appropriation, and probably can work on a permanent appropriation much sooner. I hope to have that, as I say, that discovered sooner than later. And the other issue concerning community development block grant monies, I'm glad to see that's been taking place. I guess now we do need to be addressing this next cycle, which we are currently in, which is 21, 22, and 23. So I don't know what the administration, I think we did have a meeting on that, and there were some recommendations previously about it, but I don't know where those ideas are lying at this point in time. So maybe we'll bring that up in a later council meeting, or in a caucus, or in a committee meeting. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Just,
Mr. Ross.
Council, that was last November, they wanted the next round to be half of it for either road, some sort of roads, half of it for property acquisition. Now, if we want to change that to 100%, I can, there is a new person in charge of that office down there. I don't know if they've had a replacement. You know, if we want to, we would probably have to have a public hearing if we wanted to change from that, but it can be done, so.
Well, I just want to move on it more rapidly than we did in the past. I realize it's 21, 22, and 23. We have that allotment. Do we know approximately, is it, the previous cycle was 174, 75, and it dropped to 144. So I don't know if they got any criteria yet as to the amounts for this cycle, but I'd like to get that number too, so we have something to work with.
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I know it's less than what we got this year. So we just had 150, so I think it's like 125, but don't quote me on that exact number.
Maybe we ought to get him in here and talk to him why it's going down. Because I think the previous cycle was 170 something, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's gone down each time, each time, because it was like 175.
Yeah.
And it was 150, and this time, so I
It
don't.
was 144, 150,
Yeah.
whatever, yeah. Maybe you could research that and we could get him in here and talk to him. I forget his name, but I've talked to him on the phone. Thank you.
Okay. No questions for, thank you, Mr. Gertz. Utilities, Lands, and Buildings, Chairman, Mr. Lindeman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad to hear that so many people are very knowledgeable of all the things that are going on in the city. My report was going to consist a little bit of Benson Street, which we heard plenty from people. Thank you. And also the Taste of Reading, unless Sabrina or Mr. Lynn has anything to add to that, Parks Department. I know that Sabrina's very much with We Thrive. Do you have any other comments to that or not?
Just in general for We Thrive and the initiatives of recycling. I think that, you know, it's amazing that we have residents that are stepping up to like actually do work for our city and make a big impact in it. And I just feel very humbled by the fact that, you know, we all have great ideas and we can get them accomplished. And I think that's what the We Thrive group has kind of shown, and walk with a purpose. You know, and we're always looking for more people to give input on items and moving forward. So whether they're companies or owners of companies or families, and also to get children involved. So I think if we start younger and we kind of flow through the whole family circuit. I think, you know, that's what really Reading's about, and we always come together for that. So I'm just very, you know, humbled by the fact of everyone that's being involved with all these different programs that we're doing, or even, you know, Our Lady of the Valley Festival coming up. It's just an awesome, another good reason, you know, to be a part of Reading, just like the Taste of Reading coming back in its way. So I appreciate all that. And then going forward, we're going to be working on recycling initiatives within town to like make an infrastructure. We don't have an infrastructure for recycling at our parks and things like that. So that's one of the big first things that we can kind of complete from our, you know, target community trophy, that we should call it, of getting those free dollars to help with that. So I'm looking forward to giving some great reports in the future of getting these items done. So I did RSVP. I will be going to the Rumpke Recycling, you know, plant in St. Bernard. So if anybody else wants to come, I would highly appreciate your attendance. So I know some people have done that before too. So update from me.
Yeah, we did get, heard some other replies. So I'm going to be there, and I know that a couple people have other things going on, they can't make it, but at least one of them is going to make arrangements to try to do it on a Saturday. I'm not really sure if they do tours on Saturday, but thanks, Sabrina, and I know that you're going to talk more about that $15,000 grant that's coming, that we have for 2 years, and things that will be happening with that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And that leaves me more time here to talk about my main subject tonight, and that is the waste collection and recycling bid that Patrick has given my committee copies of. And we've had an opportunity on the 24th of August to go over it in detail with some minor changes. You know, there's a date wrong, something like that, that I'll go over with Patrick. But I just want to put it in simple terms that this bid that Patrick has put together is pretty much standard, the same kind of waste collection that we have now. Difference being it's going to be for a 5-year contract with 2 additional years. Then an option of recycling, curbside recycling, to be picked up every week, or an option of curbside recycling to be picked up every other week. The residents would have an option, 3 options: 18-gallon little red container bin, you've maybe seen some of them, and then a 65-gallon container, which is what I have, and I think most people, the 900 that recycle curbside, have now, but they have a 95-gallon, which is quite a bit bigger. It's about the size of some of these trash bins that 4-unit apartment uses. They're pretty big. Anyway, the residents would have an option of those 3. But our choice here is either waste and every week recycling, or waste and every other week recycling. The kicker is that I feel like we're kind of between a rock and a hard place, because if we decide not to include recycling this time, then the residents will have to contract with Rumpke for their curbside recycling. At this time, Patrick is saying that because of the workload and so on and so forth, they're not going to be having it included on your water bill. So if you're one of the 900 people that have curbside recycling, if the council decides not to include recycling, then you'll have to contract directly with Rumpke. This is just the bid. Mr. Powell and Mr. Gertz are on my committee, so if you have any comments about this, I would certainly appreciate you voicing them.
Go ahead, Dave. I do. My concern is, in the committee meeting, is, number one, regardless of which contract, if the city decides to do recycling, is, number one, how is that recycling going to be paid? Is it going to be paid additionally by the resident then? Or is it going to be an elective choice that the city itself would pick up that expense? I think that was something we discussed, whether it would be every other week or every week. But the thing that bothered me the most was if we say to ourselves, well, recycling for everyone is too expensive and the city doesn't want to pay for the recycling, then we're going to be assessing the property owner whether they want recycling or they don't want recycling. And maybe that's something we should need to explore in more of a public hearing and a public forum. But the thing that bothers me is there's no alternate bid to continue to do what we're doing. I mean, it's not the best in many people's mind. I'm sure Pat and Tracy probably wouldn't agree with necessarily, but at least that's something. That's 900 homes that are doing recycling and are paying the fee out of their through their water bill. And I'm concerned that alternate opportunity of a bid is not going to be available if we go with what the service director's proposed. And I guess the reason he says it's too much work for the office staff, but I haven't explored that in any detail. But I think we ought to, we're going to come up looking like we don't want to. What is it, Pat? 5 communities don't have recycling in the whole county. So. I don't know what the bid's going to be, but I think at least we ought to have the opportunity to have the alternate bid taken, that we're not going to have the city itself either collect or money from the residents to pay for recycling. That is, everybody would have to recycle. Or we would say that the city will pay for the recycling as its own, out of its own general fund monies. But at least we ought to have the alternate bid if we don't want to do either of those. That at least, we ought to at least continue with what we're doing. Those 900 people, I don't even remember what it is, about $4 a month or something, I don't even remember. But I have it, and I choose to do it on my own, and maybe people feel, well, you shouldn't force me to recycle if I don't want to and then have to pay for it. I think we need to revisit this as a council and maybe get some input. But just because the administration doesn't want to deal with the question of giving that, at least having the alternate bid to explore how that could be accomplished, I think that would be that would be a fatal thing to do. I don't know how Dave or you felt. That's how I feel about it.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and I certainly understand exactly what you're saying, but this is only talking about the opportunity for businesses, Rumpke, etc., to give us prices. Personally, I think if we allow this to go through so that Patrick can get prices, I think council would be in a better position to decide everything. The issue of right now, it's being billed on the water bill, and Patrick is saying that they really don't have the staff to do that anymore. Obviously, from 360 a few years ago to 900, and every time that a person wants to sign up, they have to go through a procedure. Anytime that a person wants to take their off, they have to go through something else. They have to make arrangements for the container to be picked up, whatever. That's a separate issue. I think, it's my opinion, and I'm going to ask for a vote here tonight. It's not an ordinance. I'm going to ask for council to allow Patrick to go ahead with these proposals to get prices. And then, we get those prices and we look at the prices and we say, hey, those are great. Let's do this or let's do that. I think we need more information before we make a big, broad decision. That's my opinion.
But if you don't have an alternate in there at all, what it's going to cost?
You do, because as of right now, those people are being billed on the water bill. At some point, Patrick is going to say, these are the prices, and Patrick's going to say, we're not going to do billing for curbside recycling. Then council can say, you either will do it and we'll figure out a way for you to do it, or okay, you'll have, the residents will have to deal directly with Rumpke. But I think that's a separate issue.
Still like I'm getting painted into a corner whether I'm gonna be for or against recycling, and I don't like
It
that.
does.
I'd like to have
Right.
the alternate
Council's
bid
gonna be
out
in
there. I'd
trouble
like to
either
have
way.
it available and say, if you don't wanna do any of these two, once a week or every other week, then we'll continue to do what you're doing now, and they would be billed through the system. I would rather look at another alternative of how it's gonna be paid or financed.
Yeah, I'd like to hear other comments.
Mr. Fischescher.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that the public doesn't have a lot of input into this so far, and I realize it's just the bids. But when this first started being talked about, it was gonna be put on the ballot, which is the way I think it should be, because, number one, I do not see the city paying for recycling. It's gonna be way too much. I mean, you're looking at probably enough money to hire another person. We need a person in just about every department. So it's gonna be a tax on the residents. You can call it just a fee or whatever, but when push comes to shove, it's a tax. And, you know, I have a real issue with not getting public input when we're reaching in their pockets. I don't do curbside recycling. I take it down to the bins down at the pool every week. That's my choice. Doesn't cost me a dime, but I still do my recycling. So, you know, I'm just a little disappointed we're not really getting the public involved.
Well, the public still has time to be involved, Randy. Like I said, I was gonna ask council to approve Patrick to go out for bids based on what he suggested. And then we can when we get those bids back, I mean, there'll be plenty of time from today on for people to give us input. The last time that I was asked by the administration to pursue recycling, I put a notice in the water bill, and over 660 people responded, and the large percentage of them were all in favor of recycling. We could do that again. We do have time, I'm not sure exactly how much time, but as of the 1st of January, we don't have waste recycling or any kind of service. The bid has to go out, it has to be approved. If they decide that people are going to get bins, then they have to be delivered, and all that has to be done. You know, this is September, so
We're down to 4 months.
so we got time. I think we have time.
When do the September water bills go out?
Patrick?
Same
You
old,
know,
same
If
old.
there's time, let's put another notice in, put it out, ask for people for response.
Chris?
Water bills should be out already.
Yeah, they're due on the
Somebody
16th, I
can-
think.
They
aren't
have
they?
that done? I can't do that.
Sabrina.
Yeah, I love the discussion on this, and I'll be frank and say that, you know, a lot of residents do come up to me and talk about recycling or the price of it. But I also want to make us aware, besides the kind of management of it in the water office on the water bill side, it's actually, when we think about it from the administration's point of view, and I can't speak for them, but it's also putting the administration of recycling on Rumpke, because then we can hopefully have park recycling and the extra recycling cans that are down at the stadium, some of them can be there, and then some of them can be at the garage or wherever they would like them to help with the park maintenance part. But having that receptacle at the houses, you know, will also be, now it's Rumpke's kind of thing to kind of help facilitate with that versus, you know, other things that are happening or not happening. And then the kickback. So I think doing a cost analysis of it, you know, I definitely look at that as the broader item of like, how much money can we bring back? How much is this going to help? You know, proper reporting, getting the right players in the game to do the reporting of it. I think that that's going to be, you know, definitely helpful in the future, and it's nothing we can change from the past, you know, but going forward. But to know that we're one of 4 in Hamilton County that don't do it, I don't know, I feel like that's the trend of going that way because cardboard is the number one thing that makes it to the landfill. You know, everybody has cardboard around. If we can kind of help facilitate that and educate what can be put in it, because as we saw, you know, even at A Taste of Reading, people think that certain cups can be recycled. I just think it's going to make a bigger impact than what we think, and there's a reason why Rumpke would kind of give that at a good price. But doing the analysis of what would a person cost to manage that, you know, on the water bill and stuff, because I see the way they're managing it now, or actually taking a deeper look at it, and it's something that hasn't been done before. It's been a new process. So I think when we think about it, it's not just about the office work, it's about turning it on Rumpke and going, hey, you guys are the experts in the game. Here's the can. We also know that cans, the older ones with just the open top that are square boxes sitting on the ground, are different than the ones with lids on top of them. So, you know, helping facilitate that cost and getting grants for every resident to have one. You know, there's a bunch of different ways to work it. But I mean, I think, you know, just like when our water department moved to Greater Cincinnati, we now purchase water. We don't have our water plant anymore. Whether we like it, whether we don't, whether we're indifferent about it, it's a choice. And, you know, I'll have a lot of residents come up and talk to me about recycling in general. So I just want to make everyone aware of that too, but also that it's kind of pushing back and using a service as a true service for our residents and kind of help, you know, our staff kind of worry about other items in the city too as well, so.
Thank you, Sabrina. Again, you mentioned it because of the fact that we don't have enough people to do the job. Some things are forgotten. At least twice since I've been here, we've lost at least $3,500 to $3,800 because we just didn't file the paperwork with Rumpke's Hamilton County Recycling. So that's $7,000 that we could have done something with. The administration asked me to pursue this, and I think it's because Patrick is overworked. And this would take some burden off of his office. And, you know, I understand, you know, $4.25 a month, about $1.10 a week. That's not a lot of money. You know, you can't buy a pizza with that. I just think it's not a lot of money, and, you know, call it a tax. But I think it's time for Reading to be among those people that do this sort of thing. And so I'm going to ask for a vote tonight. And we'll see which way it goes. But I would like, I'll ask now unless somebody else has a comment.
Any other
I'll
comments?
ask now if we can get a vote on Patrick to pursue this, to go out and get these bids.
Are we gonna have the alternate in there, or just the way it's written?
It is in there. It is
For the-
in there
for the-
because
for
we're
the people
buying
to
it
pay
right
it?
now.
Pardon?
That's a separate issue. That would be after we get the bids. I mean, do I understand this? Maybe you
Is there
explain
any
it to me if I
down,
don't
is
see
there
it.
any down risk in getting the bids?
It's hard to say.
Well, he's gotta get bids regardless.
Right,
This is a
so I think
proposal,
you gotta
so-
go get the bids.
He don't
to,
need us to take bids, by the way. You can
Yeah,
take bids
well,
without
I
an
think getting the
ordinance.
Don's
bids,
asking.
doing the analysis from you guys and getting community input, just as it should be, I think you gotta have a starting point for something, and I think this is a good opportunity to have that starting point.
Yep.
You know, even at the stadium, it's great, you know, like my family was diligent about taking our recycling down like Mr. Fischesser's family is, you know, and so we kind of use it as an activity, a walking activity sometimes getting out and getting some fresh air activity, you know, but the city also pays for those bins too. So it's figuring out that analysis and where that sweet spot is. But like I said, if we can be part of the solution to this, and also Rumpke just had to get a new landfill, you know, in Whitewater, I think it is, and they're struggling with that. The repercussions of all this are happening larger than just living here in Reading, you know, so it's just thinking outside the box a little bit too and seeing what it shakes down as. If it's not the good suggestion for our community, then we need to be able to say it, but we got to have a starting point of where to start to do something that other communities are already doing or asking for what they got when they did it, you know, because we're at a good opportunity point to still have leverage with it, so.
I think you got your answer. You should go out for bids.
Well, I don't think so. I want to vote.
that Patrick's gonna do it anyway.
Right.
I'll make a motion that we go out to bid, if that's what you need, Don.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Gertz, second by Mr. Lindeman to direct the administration to go out for bids. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Yeah, I told you.
Thank you.
The
I
answer was-
appreciate it. And, you know, it's not over till it's over.
Okay,
By the way.
is your committee report done now?
Please,
Is your committee report done now?
one more thing. Again, we talked about the contract we made for 5 years, but the Reading City Council, in its sole discretion, may delete certain items and work from this requirement of the final contract. That'd be us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Fischasher.
Yeah, just, I guess this would fall under utilities. Just a reminder to all the residents that starting next month, Cincinnati Bell requires that you add 513 to any local phone number because of changes that are going nationwide. You don't have to put a 1 on it, but you do have to put 513 in front of all the phone numbers.
Yeah.
I'll just tell Siri to make the call.
There you go.
Yeah, but you gotta tell Siri the
Better
number.
let her know.
You gotta
I'll
go
put
in,
it
you gotta go in
first.
and put all
I
the
learned that much.
513s in there.
Make sure your contact has 513 in it.
Yeah.
I do, I put them in.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lindeman. Zoning, Planning, and Environment, Chairman, Mr. Powell.
Thank you. I have a proposed ordinance on the floor this evening to control the placement of unsolicited written materials. There was one minor change to that, based on what Dave Stevenson had said, and also Denny had brought it up. We're going to delete the second whereas in its entirety. So that would be one change to it. The ordinance should help prevent litter in the city and improve the appearance of things in the city. One other thing that we have going on as far as the Bridal District Committee that I am a member of, I will be reaching out to the Bridal District Association in the coming days to solicit their ideas for potential improvements to the Bridal District. You know, we're already doing the curbs and pavers and the paving, but, you know, is there something else that could possibly be done? And, you know, kind of see what they're thinking, because I'm not in that business, and I know Katie is, but I don't think any of the rest of us really are. So just to kind of see what they might think would help. The other thing I got going on is I've been reaching out to companies that perform organizational reviews for local government. I found one that has a local presence that I'm going to reach out to. I'm thinking about asking them to come to an upcoming council meeting to speak about what they do and the associated costs to foster further discussion on council. I think it is time we take a serious look on how we do things as an organization and how it can be improved to ensure we allocate resources where they will have the most impact. I want to get a little more research from them, but it's definitely something that I think we should look into, you know, just the organization as a whole. They do have a list of several communities that they have provided. I was planning on get a feel for things, but and what they could do with that might actually cost just something to improve the efficiency.
We have for council, so.
Right.
Just so you remember that. Any for Mr. Powell? Which talking about which
It
one?
would be the
All right, thank you, Mr. Powell. And Chairwoman.
I held on August, worked out the best way to property ordinances. It was a quick meeting, but accomplished. Ordinance, I sent it on to my committee members for running it to the rest of council. So I trust that everyone read it over. Mr. Albrink did catch some typos in there, so I will fix those after we vote, and then I'll send it back out to Carla. Hopefully tonight we can vote and move forward on this issue, and other than that, that's all I have.
All right, any comments? Thank you, Ms. Adichiko. Let's see. Public Health and Safety Chairman, Mr. Fischasher.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since I was unable to give run statistics last month, I have both July and August statistics this evening. For the month of July, the fire department made 234 EMS responses, 44 fire responses, 13 of which were all calls, for a total of 278 responses. For the month of August, they made 219 EMS responses, 38 fire responses, 9 of which were all call, for a total of 257 responses. For the police, for the month of July, the police department had 1,651 calls for service, 29 auto accidents, 335 total charges filed, with 231 of those being original charges. Citations issued, 30 to Arlington Heights, 13 to Hamilton County Court, 3 to Juvenile Court, and 235 to Reading Mayor's Court, for a total of 282 citations. For the month of August, the department had 1,360 calls for service, 32 auto accidents, 246 total charges filed, with 178 of those being original charges. Citations issued, 25 to Arlington Heights Court, 7 to Hamilton County Court, 2 to Juvenile Court, and 175 to the Reading Mayor's Court, for a total of 216 citations. Other things, congratulations to our fire department on receiving the American Heart Association's Mission Lifeline EMS Silver Plus Achievement Award for implementing specific quality improvement measures to treat patients who suffer a severe heart attack. Let's see, I also was going to talk about the police test, but I think Patrick covered that. My committee will hopefully be meeting on Tuesday, September 28th at 6:30 in the caucus room. And finally, Saturday marks the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attack on our nation. That day, we lost 2,977 people, including 344 firefighters, 72 law enforcement officers, and 55 military personnel at the Pentagon. Sadly, a lot of people today have all but forgotten this horrendous act and the impact it had on every American. Life goes on, but we must never forget the events of this day. This Saturday at 8:46 a.m., the time the first plane struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center, I ask that everyone stop whatever you're doing and say a prayer for all those who lost their lives that day, and ask God to guard and protect us from something like this ever happening again. I have no other report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fischasher. Service Chairman, Mr. Albrink.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Service Department continues to do the many things that they're tasked with doing, patching potholes, collecting branches, repairing catch basins, repairing water main breaks. So as always, they do a good job, and they have a lot of jobs to do. I'm happy to report that we have hired a individual to be the mechanic and another mechanic up at the Service Department. His name is Griffith. He will be starting September the 27th. I sat in on the interview process, and I've found him to be a very competent individual, and he has a great deal of experience. So we're happy to have him, and we're looking forward to him starting on the 27th. And as I mentioned, the Service Department is doing 400 feet of curbing on Benson Street, and if you drive down there, you see it's a lot of work, and they've got the forms in, and hopefully, as they're talking about, hopefully getting it all done tomorrow. So, and then I think the machinery will be in to scarify the roadway, and then they'll proceed with that. So it's going pretty quick here. So, and I think that's it for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Olbrink, and Recreation Chairman, Mr. Litt.
Thank you very much. Last month and in July, the mayor mentioned in his report the need for a full-time employee for the service department. I did reach out to Darrell Courtney and Seth Redwine about what they thought. They both in agreement that they could always use help in the service department if we could make that happen. So I reached out to the administration and said, how can I make this happen? I was informed by the administration that their plan is to basically try to hire more part-time help, and that their plan is to also have a service person during the busy times of the parks, another one, so that they have 2 people assigned to the service department during the busy months, and try to get most of it done with part-time help. I support the administration, confused in that they say that they want something higher, but at the same time have a plan that this is where they want to go. But they obviously want it to happen if the budget sees itself and gets better, that they want to hire a full-time employee. Obviously, the service department and I are totally in agreement with that. I hope that in the future, the people on this board is too. So hopefully if the budget next year improves, that can happen. But at this time, I support the administration plan is to try to just do the part-time help and switch another full-time over at that time of the busy time of the parks. So that's all I have to say about that. The pool is officially closed. I want to thank everyone at the pool that did work this year. They did a great job. I was proud of the service. I've always had good reports about that. There was around 296 registered members or families with the pool this year. That's much higher than it was in the past. In 2019, it was 282. So, I mean, that's higher, so I like to see that the pool is being used. The numbers are increasing. So to me, that's a good thing. Obviously, I'm not going to count the COVID year, but that was about 179, but I'll throw that out there. But either way, the numbers are increasing, so I'm happy to see that the pool is being used. And I just wanted to thank everybody that took part in working at the pool for doing a good job. And when I go down there and I see it, I think they do a good job. The people that I know go or say that the employees do a good job. So I want to thank everybody that was down there and working at the pool. So fall soccer has started. We did have to move some of the fields around because the Port Authority is not allowing us to use the property there. Also, Hilltop is under the construction because of the new softball fields going up for the schools. So we can't have some of the fields up at Hilltop. So we're moving some of the fields around. We're able to put 2 fields and one small one at Canic Park, 2 smaller fields at Hayfie, and the instruction fields are behind the pool. So that's how it was sort of last year too. The instruction fields were behind the pool. So is Reading having sort of a land problem? Yeah, I would say that is. We're trying to find ways to find where to put these soccer fields, but we're making it happen when the fields are still there. The service department is lining them and working hard to keep it up and going. So, and that's what I have for my report today.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lynn. I know that Mr. Powell talked about the special committee. Did you have anything to add for the Benson?
Well, I should have mentioned that I asked Mr. Gertz to kind of not oversee, but look into things that were happening on Benson Street. I'm neglected to mention that he was doing that.
Okay, good.
I appreciate the help.
All right. Very good. Any other business, city business that needs to go into any committees? Then we will If not, we'll go to legislation. Are there any resolutions?
No, sir.
Then we have five first readings tonight, so we will go with the first one.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Reading, Ohio by adding new section 660.17 entitled Unsolicited Written Materials to Chapter 660 entitled Safety, Sanitation, and Health.
Okay, and this is the one that has the second whereas removed, which will be in the final copy. Okay, no motion, so we will go ahead and read the
Did
second.
you want to make that just the first reading? Is that what you were
Yeah,
thinking?
yeah. Want to make sure there's plenty of time for any comments.
Okay, then we will go to the second ordinance.
An ordinance requiring residential rental property owners to properly abide by Ohio Revised Code 5323.02 by completing the Hamilton County Residential Rental Property Registration and establishing penalties accordingly to law and declaring an emergency.
I'll make a motion to suspend the second and third reading.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Ms. Edichico, seconded by Mr. Fischescher, to suspend the rule that requires a second and third reading for this ordinance. Roll call.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico?
Yes.
That motion passed.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lindeman, seconded by Mr. Powell, to adopt the ordinance for the residential property owners. Roll call.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico?
Yes.
Very good. The ordinance is adopted, and the ordinance number?
2021-28.
20 what?
28.
28. An ordinance authorizing the treasurer or their designee to enter into a contract with Municipal Income Tax Solutions, MITS, for the purpose of allowing taxpayers to e-file and e-pay and declaring emergency.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring a second and third reading.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Fischescher, seconded by Mr. Powell, to suspend the rule that requires a second and third reading. Roll call.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Adichico, seconded by Mr. Lynn to adopt the ordinance. Roll call.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Ordinance is adopted. Ordinance number?
2021-29.
Spend it wisely.
We always do.
An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a contract with the Village of Arlington Heights for police protection services and declaring an emergency.
That's the first read only.
Right, okay.
And an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Duke Energy, Ohio, granting a release for the right-of-way restoration and declaring an emergency.
I believe Patrick said that was just the first reading also. Any other miscellaneous business? Mr. Fischescher?
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about the Taste of Reading, which, you know, my wife and I worked it for a few hours and was very successful. And I just wanted to reach out, reach out to Cheryl and Crystal G. and the Legion Auxiliary, who were the actual people that put on the Taste of Reading, and because I thought they did an outstanding job for the first time, and it was very successful, and they're looking forward to next year. So, you know, my hat's off to all the women that organized that whole thing.
Sure.
Anything else? Then this meeting's adjourned.